Welcome to another episode of Diversitas. Diversitas is a podcast at the crossroads of diversity, business, and culture. Today, we are so fortunate, right? Because we have Brian Oglesby with us today. Brian is the Interim President and CEO of the Eastern Minority Supplier Development Council, lovingly known as EMSDC. EMSDC is one of 23 regional affiliates of the National Minority Supplier Development Council. And the EMSDC operates in Pennsylvania, Southern New Jersey, and Delaware. The purpose of the EMSDC is to foster the development of minority business enterprises, which are defined as Asian, Black, Hispanic, and Native American, to better align them with corporations and those corporations' diverse supply chains, so that we can create, so that the EMSDC can create growth and opportunity for diverse businesses in our area. Brian is no stranger to economic and business development, having been a consultant and business owner for years. I won't say how many years, because I don't want to age. He has previously served as the VP for strategic projects for the EMSDC. So this is his second time around with the organization. And so today we want to speak to Brian about the state of diverse business in the Philadelphia region and nationally. And with that introduction, welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We appreciate you coming on today. It's exciting for me because I've been long involved with the EMSDC and value it as an organization. So for the uninitiated, tell us what the EMSDC is, what it does. Give us some information.
Well, your intro was pretty spot on, but I'll expand on it. The Eastern Minority Supplier Development Council, EMSDC, is part of 23 regional affiliates throughout the country of the National Minority Supplier Development Council. We are charged with the task of certifying MBEs and making sure we connect them to corporate members. We're a membership organization comprised of corporate members, and we connect our MBEs to those corporate members, and through extension, other corporations throughout the network who may or may not be affiliated but are offering opportunities. We connect, we advocate, we develop, and we try to make sure that we are creating a space where our MBEs are growing to a place where they are level competitors with majority firms in the marketplace. That is our ultimate goal. Specifically in the Eastern region, which is comprised of Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Southern New Jersey, as you said earlier, we try to make sure that we are expansive in our connections to our various affiliate partners, including universities, hospital systems, and the like, as well as our over 100 corporate members. We are pushing towards 1,000 MBEs certified in the region, and which makes us a little bit unique from the other entities in the region that do certification. Our certification has a national and global reach. Our certification is recognized throughout the country. Several of our sister affiliate councils are the certified record for entire states. We run parallel with certifications, and they do seek us out. But our corporate members, most importantly, seek out the MBE certification that we provide as a way of validating the company and making sure they've been properly vetted as minorities, because oftentimes, as we know, there's a history of people posing as minority firms,
right? And
we do vetting to make sure we weed those things out.
So we're going to get into that, and I appreciate that introduction. So I'm already off on a tangent based upon what you just talked about, because I really want to do kind of set the table here, because some in our audience may not understand, I think, the value or importance of what you guys do on a day-to-day basis. And so when you kind of put out that number of 1,000 diverse businesses kind of in your network and your stable, why is it important for there to, this is the broadest question that I can ask, so I apologize. But why is this whole project important? Why is it important to grow and develop diverse businesses in our country and in our region?
The short answer is we're way behind. Economically, we don't represent enough of the GDP. We don't represent enough of the business marketplace. We don't represent the level of, even proportionally, the level of market penetration that we should as minority firms in a country that's rapidly becoming majority minority. Our representation in the open marketplace isn't even aligned with the percentages of the last census. We are even though we've been at this as councils for more than 50 years now, we just celebrated our 50th year. The needle hasn't moved nearly enough. Even when I put out numbers like we have 100 corporate members, we have close to 1,000 MBEs, we have excessively more than that in this catchment that can be a part of this process. As an economist who often puts on his economist hat, the value proposition of diversity is that it's more profitable for your business the more diverse you are. And the reason we do this is to make sure that our MBs have ample opportunity, equal opportunity, equitable opportunity to enter the marketplace as level competitors. And also use this process beyond just the social consciousness, beyond just doing the right thing, understanding the business proposition of diversity. And by every measure, every study you want to look at, Harvard B School, Wharton, Said, wherever you want to look, the profitability of the more diverse your firm is in its spend, in its internal activity and decision making, and its marketing and outreach, the more profitable you are. And the standard number is around 19 to 20% more profitable. So to me, it's a very easy value proposition to approach a corporation and say, if you engage in these things in a more diverse way, you're going to make more money. And then on the other side, if you have internal goals that you've developed for diverse spend, that's fine. If you have requirements that are imposed upon you by municipal authorities, state authorities, federal contractors, or a vendor who just believes in diversity, you make yourself more marketable. So it kind of sells itself. And we have to do a good job of making sure that we're developing MBEs to meet what's in the marketplace as well. So go ahead.
You raise a couple of very, very good points that I kind of want to drill down on. So first of all, because I think, like you, I do this on a regular basis in terms of trying to give folks kind of what the value proposition is to doing more business with diverse companies, right? And so, you raise a good point. There are any number of studies, and I think I use McKinsey in presentations that I do on a regular basis, that really kind of details how companies that have a more of a diverse vendor network oftentimes do better in terms of their own businesses. But there are a couple of reasons for that, right? One, I would think, is that a lot of businesses in this country, one thing they don't talk about, and you can chime in, is that a lot of businesses, large scale businesses that we are looking to attract to the EMSDC as members, right? Those businesses do business themselves with large government entities, right? And so those government entities oftentimes have, as we've kind of moved forward and progressed, have some kind of diverse spend requirement. So that's one thing. Another thing is that when you have companies, and I often use the Ford versus Toyota example, where you're talking about not just Ford versus Toyota, but Ford and its supply chain versus Toyota and its supply chain, and how you can, the more diverse your supply chain is, generally the larger it's going to be. The more competition you have within your supply chain, the more competition you have within your supply chain, the more savings you realize as a purchaser of goods and services from your supply chain, which is another way you make more money. Am I kind of on point with that, or is there?
Yeah, you're pretty much spot on. And I'll tell you that there are 4 major components when you talk about supplier diversity and the impact of it on a company's bottom line. There's increased competition, which means the more suppliers you have in the marketplace, the better pricing you're going to get from said suppliers. And I'm looking at this from the perspective of a corporate buyer.
Right.
And that's inclusive of a more diverse group. When you have more diverse groupings, you're obviously going to have more companies that are in the space that are capable of doing the work either collaboratively on their own or work through a merger and acquisition. And I'll get to that a little bit later. The other piece would be you're reducing risk. Working with more diverse entities and having more diversity within your company is going to reduce the risk of failure or risk of getting into
drill down on that, because oftentimes a couple of things, Brian, not to break in on you, but a couple of things. Oftentimes, number one, people think that the more diverse your supplier stable is, your costs actually go up because those diverse vendors and suppliers are more expensive than the partners that
that could be possible, but on the other side of it, you opened up the breadth of your supply chain, which reduces the risk of having a supply. Like we're in this space now where the supply chain is under stress post-COVID, and the glut of manufacturing, the dearth of the workforce in certain spaces, and then the dearth of people in the logistics space, a variety of reasons impacts the supply chain, the availability of supplies and rare earths to make advanced manufacture electronics, for example. If you have a more diverse supply chain, there are more options for your supply chain. If you have a myopic supply chain and that myopic space breaks down, then your ability to bring products to market is severely damaged, and that's the risk of you losing your large swaths of revenue. Yeah, there's risk in having too much on the table, but there's greater risk in having myopic approaches. Right. So, when I took it to risk, you have to decide what level of risk you want to engage in if you want to be less diverse, because that means you're risk tolerant. Your risk tolerance is really high if you're going to work in a very myopic and homogenized supplier base, because you're risking if that access to that particular spot in your supply chain falls apart, you don't have anyone else to deal with, or anyone else who can get other things to market through different relationships that they have and different spaces of nodes and the access that they have. Right. And you have to be very, we get into this, people like to say things like, I don't see color. The good thing about seeing color is understanding that the connections and relationships supplier one may have, as opposed to supplier two, can get us something to your market in times of peril, in times of change, in times of where something gets snapped up in terms of the supply chain, or someone closes a market on something. You may say, I can pivot left to this organization that has this relationship with this other supplier overseas to get my product to market faster. So those things happen. And then, the other two would be improve brand recognition and reception in the marketplace, because you're always going to, when you create goodwill in the marketplace, people are going to engage you more than not. The people who say, I'm not going to do this because it's diverse, they isolate themselves anyway. The vast majority of people are going to want to make sure they go with a company that has a warm glow to them. Right. And then access to new markets that you haven't penetrated. If I just go non-minority, minority, it's about 65-35 right now. If you're just focused on the majority, you're missing out on 35% of your marketplace. So if you're not engaging in diversity in the development of your products, in the supply of said products, in the marketing of said products, if I was a CEO and I said to my board of directors, I'm only going after only 65% of the marketplace, a product that can reach 100, I'll probably get fired. And
go ahead. I got a question for you.
But I mean, I think, those are four things that jump off the page immediately when it comes to the impact of it, and not to mention the level of innovation that comes from diversity, because you have different ideas that come into the fore, and things are developed through a different perspective, development of things through and ideas and services through unique perspectives. So
as you were talking, I was thinking about how, and what really hit me was your talk about the market and how you ignore basically a third of the market as it stands right now, to the extent that you decide that you're only going to market to this part of the population or whatever.
Or even get your supplies from that part.
Correct. But as you know, there has been substantial pushback against the notion that business entities should look at the market that way. If you look at, for example, the big example is if you look at what's going on right now in Florida, and the fact that there is a a governmental pushback against, diversity and DEI initiatives. Like, what should we be thinking about that as it relates to, again, the context of what the market looks like right now?
I think when you get into spaces like Florida and other spaces that are similar, that are trying to diminish what DEI does, I think you really have to focus on the value proposition and the profitability of diversity. Because, I go into this diatribe about the four legs of a chair around here, and I won't get into it, but in depth. But one of the chairs is greed, and at some point, the value proposition has to exceed the bias. And there's some companies out there's some entities, some states, obviously, who will cut off their nose to spite their face. But what that also creates is market pressure on said entities. Because if I can do proof of concept and I can take it to someone else who's more amenable to diverse spend, and they're making more money than person one or entity one or state one, there's going to be more pressure from those constituents of that state and the stakeholders, primary stakeholders in that state. And I won't get into what stakeholders are who and who what, but right. Stakeholders, shareholders, for a better term, will put pressure on you to enter the same marketplaces and do the things that the more profitable people are doing. And, sometimes, and to be clear, it's not just a linear projection, 65-35, it's 65-35 of the market that you're trying to get to, right? The customer demographic that you're trying to get to. Right. And those demographics aren't immutable. They change and they shift. I mean, sometimes that market share might be 50-50, depending on what type of product and service.
Correct.
It could shoot up to 95-5 in some cases, especially with high-end luxury products, which no one can afford anyway. So, the higher you go in the food chain in terms of those luxury items, the less diverse it is.
Yeah, but there's a lot of market beyond that, right?
Well, I mean, and we have to be respectful of the market forces that dictate all these changes. I mean, we're in a global economy. It's very volatile. The market goes up and down every day by hundreds of points in an unprecedented way. We, the egghead economists that I hang out with or read about, they have, if you read 20 different people's opinions, we have 30 different opinions on what the economy is going to look like in 3 months now. Whereas you used to be able to build a consensus. I mean, we have interest rates, we have wars in Ukraine, we have global warming and the impact on infrastructure and environment. We have basic economic and social and political wars in our largest economies that are having an impact on the value of commodities and resources. We have the supply chain issues. We're still post-COVID in a lot of ways in terms of people returning to the workplace and the great quit, that for lack of a better term. There's so many things that have created this coalescing gumbo of economic factors that create a market that's very volatile. And to me, at the end of the day, the thing that matters most, especially in a capitalist society, is profit and capital. So if I can create situations that are embedded within diversity, deliberately embedded with diversity, that lead to profitability, that's going to make my chances of winning a lot higher than if I just try to appeal to people's good nature and warm glow, because good nature and warm glow goes away.
It all goes away.
When the lights start flickering and the bills start getting bigger, people care less about those things, unfortunately. They're caring about their own self-preservation, and part of self-preservation is profitability.
Yes, no question.
So my role as president in terms of my MBEs is making sure that, one, we're understanding what's happening next and getting us in front of the line and developing our businesses in a number of ways to get to those opportunities first rather than last, because I don't want my MBEs to be a bunch of serial subcontractors aspiring to be someone's subcontractor.
Who are you looking for? Who are you looking for? So give me, I mean, you got any number of businesses across any number of industries that are members or have been certified by EMSDC. Having said that, if I am a diverse business owner and I'm looking to possibly spend my precious few dollars to get certified by the EMSDC, what's the benefit to me? Sell me on that.
Well, I'll start with what the benefits aren't. And I try to be very clear with this for any MBE. The MBE certification is not manna from heaven business-wise. You don't get the certification and suddenly contracts start falling in your lap. It validates you as a minority enterprise. It brings you into our network where we have resources and connections and relationships and databases that you can utilize to continue to develop your business, and creating other relationships with other MBEs. We have a board member that's comprised of corporate membership and MBEs. We have an MBEIC, which advocates for the fellow MBEs, and anywhere from, we have 4 classes of businesses: $1 million and under, $1 million to $4 million, 5 to $10 million, and $10 million and above. And I'm probably getting that wrong. My staff is going to kill me. But we have we have businesses great and small on the MBE side. We have 9-figure companies. We have thousandaires, and to quote George Jefferson, on the other side of it. Myself, I've started 5 companies, 4 of which were boutique practices that I kept intentionally small because I don't like overhead.
Right.
But the same resources as a large company you have for a small company. And the benefit of going into the council is creating a clearer line of sight to the business opportunities and creating a greater level of access to those corporations who are looking for the services, commodities that you're putting on the table. And also, from a business development standpoint, understanding where your product fits in the marketplace. Because to be clear, we're not trying to steer our MBEs towards diversity spend. Because companies have diverse spend goals and they seek us out because they want to have a certain amount of diverse spend. We're steering our companies towards the spend, 100% of the spend. We don't necessarily say engage this company because they're an MBE. We say engage this company because they're capable of doing the work that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these corporations, and I don't knock anyone for putting together diversity goals, and I've been a part of this process. But nothing wrong with exceeding the goals by a long shot. Nothing wrong with having 50% diverse spend, even though your goal may have been 20%. But it's our responsibility to make sure that we put our MBEs in the mix and give them the best opportunities possible through curated activities, through developmental workshops and educational programs, through creating networking events that are actually curated networking events, meaning the right company with the right buyer. Mm-hmm. Educating our corporations to make sure they have the right people in the room when they engage our MBEs. So there's someone who either can cut a check or has a clear line of sight and influence over getting a check cut. And in return for that level of cooperation, we try to make MBEs get MBEs in the space where they're ready to go as soon as they engage and make that connection.
What's the
small events? Go ahead.
What's the biggest impediment for the diverse businesses that you come across, in the biggest impediment to them being able to do business with your large corporate members? What are some of the larger impediments?
Capacity. The normal things like access to capital, but also not engaging in business development activities that are aligned with the growth in the marketplace and having that market intelligence. And that's not an indictment of anyone's brain power, just intel as in doing reconnaissance and analyzing data. Mm-hmm. So there are 3 things that we kind of stand up on top of our 4 basic activities is, we've done a lot of workshops on mergers and acquisitions. Whether you're great or small, the fastest way for MBEs to grow is through merger and acquisition. I mean, the example that I like to throw out there is if you're going to, if you need a warehouse, don't make a real estate transaction, buy a company that owns one. Mm. If you're trying to get into a larger scale construction project, don't just do a joint venture with someone or a partnership with someone. You can do the plumbing, they can do the sheetrock. Merge or buy, or one buys the other, and come out as a larger, more capable company.
And when you do that, do you talk about kind of creative ways to do that? Because in order for that
absolutely.
to happen,
we just did an event back in September. I shouldn't say just because it's back in September at the Wells Fargo Center, where we had 2 large minority firms that bought majority firms to become larger firms. And as large scale as they are, they started off very small and they grew through consistent merger and acquisition of particular assets. And there are tips and tricks for someone like me, who used to be a boutique practitioner, to someone who has a company with 100 employees and $50 million in revenue. There are ways to do that. Actually, we literally just had a conversation with an attorney who's now a college educator who's going to do a workshop for us at our annual conference. And I'll plug that later, April 14th, Sofitel, the Roar conference. We'll talk about mergers and acquisitions on a smaller scale, using it for micro businesses, for example. So, and then the other two pillars is engaging the global marketplace, and this is irrespective of size as well, where you create more gravitas coming back into your home market or your targeted domestic markets. And the other piece is, one after my own heart, is forecasting, developing forecasting methodology or utilizing forecasting methodology, whatever databases are available out there, to develop your business and calibrate your business to what's emerging in the marketplace so you're first in line instead of 17th.
Give me an example, Brian, if you can.
I'll say, if you're in the IT space, AI is all the rage, and the forecasting on the AI space and whatever AI platform people are using dictates that getting into this marketplace right now is absolutely essential. And being able to get in and develop your own IT, develop your own access to AI, utilize the AI technology to develop things for other people, creating business plans or whatever. And I'm just using this as a very passive example. If you have the ability to look at the tea leaves and the various data sources and say, this is something that's happening now, or it's going to happen in 2 years, as opposed to, look what happened, let's go do some business.
Let's go jump on it.
Yeah. When you're at that, hey, look what happened, everybody's making money doing this, that means you're too late.
Right.
Unless you come in a very innovative or money deep way, and most minority firms don't, at least on the money deep side.
Right.
But if you can get on the front edge of a technology, electric car chargers or something along those lines, Ford is going EV almost exclusively now. So there's going to be a huge marketplace for electronic chargers, although there are companies who are already way ahead of the game. But 3 years ago, somebody should have been saying, we need to start investing in this space. And I can think of a couple of MBEs nationally who have jumped in this space early and are probably going to do very well because they forecasted that this was going to happen. And you have to get into a space where you understand, where you're becoming more educated about what the marketplace is bearing and how these global events create opportunities. I don't want to purport any particular thing right now because I don't want people looking at this podcast and going after some business that
Sure.
But if you do and you win, I'm here.
Well, what's interesting about what you're saying though, that what you kind of put out there as challenges or points kind of that we need to be thinking about if we are business owners as we try to continue to grow our businesses and whatever, and how it relates to kind of the value proposition of EMSDC. The things that you talk about are consistent with any business, right? This is not like a
I'm not saying
that you're talking about are not unique to.
I'm not saying anything new. And what I'm doing is I'm creating some connective tissue between disparate concepts that need to work in concert and function as a facilitator of those things happening. Our organization helps businesses grow. We don't grow businesses, we help them grow. We give them tools, resources, and connections and advocacy to help them grow. Make sure they're operating in a regulatory environment that's favorable, or aware enough of the regulatory environment where they can make it favorable for themselves. We connect them to the corporations that are looking for what they're buying. We're developing companies through education and access. So we have to be in those. We have to operate in those spaces to help those companies do business. All the while, those businesses are engaging in their own business modeling, their own business development activities, their own levels of risk tolerance, and what their growth model is, whether they want to stay boutique or they want to become a conglomerate. We serve all the comers. My goal is to have as many MBEs that are level competitors in the marketplace as possible, but that's not required of our MBEs. But it should be efforted by the ones who want to get there, and you'll be the ones help building the bridge to get where they go.
So as you were talking, I was thinking about in particular the construction industry, and I was thinking about it in the context of talking about capacity. And capacity, I know, is an issue that I've come across in my dealings with diverse businesses who want to grow, who want to service larger projects who perhaps want to be the major trade on a construction project, or they want to actually be the GC on a project, or whatever the case may be, but they just are not there yet in terms of their capacity, which is to say their ability to really take on and digest a job of a certain size. How is the EMSDC helping companies in your stable to grow their capacity?
I'll allude back to the things that we've been talking about in terms of the things we try to stand up as programming.
Right.
Again, I'm an advocate of merger and acquisition as the number one way to grow our companies. One of the largest companies in our catchment is one of those companies I talked about in M&A, that they acquired majority firms in order to grow over a long period of time. And we have to understand the deficit that our starting point, the deficit starting point that we have. And I'll talk about construction. We are decades behind majority construction firms in this region alone in terms of relationships, access.
That might be an understatement, dude.
Yeah, it's probably 50 years. It maybe even we're still at the starting line in comparison. Someone else is building a 80-story skyscraper. We're working on residential properties, 20 unit, and that's a huge deal. So we're way behind in that space through no direct fault of our own, because there's so minimal access to capital. You don't have the political relationships. You don't have the ability to grow and get have ability to do things rapidly in terms of growth. You get first option loans where you can't take on other opportunities because you're on a first option loan to do something. So once the job's over, now you got to go back to square one. We're very protective of our businesses. And, as a business owner and someone who's done a lot of work in the construction space as a consultant, our companies tend to be very protective of our babies. And we don't want to sell our babies to anybody else or relinquish any control of that for the sake of growth. So we have a lot of small companies orbiting, focusing on being subcontractors as opposed to really attacking the space of being a CM or a GC. And we don't engage in enough of the trades. Another issue that is an artifact of bad things from the past and from the current. We don't engage enough trades where we can build the entire building ourselves. In other cities, we can. In this region, we can't. We always
is that because of the unionized nature of the workforce?
I think the lack of overall diversity. I think there have been efforts to diversify, but not anything that hasn't happened is an effective effort. I think I think it also stops companies from being able to create spaces. We don't have minority trade. We don't have enough minorities in all the combined trades to build a building as a complete minority building. Right. And it's a gumbo of reasons. We're not as densely populated in the unions as we need to be. We're not getting access to capital from the banking side. The government support has so many caveats that it's often a hindrance to growth. It's just a hindrance. It allows for staying in business and keeping the lights on, but it's in a lot of ways it's a hindrance to growth. We don't have a well enough trained workforce to help us expand. I mean, we have a fairly solid workforce investment system, which I worked in this region, but we're still not producing people who can help these in the construction space specifically help this construction company go. If I'm a CM and I want to bring in glaziers, steel workers, steam fitters, pipe fitters, I'm not going to find a lot of minority firms.
No, you're not.
When I'm sitting in rooms evaluating the spend goals and the employment goals, and someone says in that meeting, yeah, we have 13 minority carpenters and we can't get any more because that's all they're available. Full stop. That's a problem.
Full stop.
Yeah. So and then you go and the next person comes in the room and they say we don't have any minority carpenters because they're using all of them. So we have a lot of issues that need to be to work together in terms of our role as someone who certifies MBs and connects them to corporates. We have to be able to work with our partners because we don't do everything, but we have to be able to be an advocate for our partners in other spaces. Like I have to be able to walk into the workforce investment system and say, I need you to produce more people who are doing this because this is an opportunity. And they do research and data, and they do an outstanding job of doing the research and data. And I have to be the person that's an affirmation and a connector. I need to go to a chamber of commerce and say, I need you to utilize the influence of your membership to make these things happen. I need to be able to go to a developer and say, we need to engage in more diverse spend goals so we can spur some growth to have larger scale businesses in the construction. And we need your influence as a developer to deal with issues that may emerge from unions, or may emerge from CMs, or may emerge from the body politic, because the developers, putting the shovel in the ground and funding the thing, and there's the level of gravitas that they bring to the game. So, we can't do it ourselves, and we have to create advocates and people who are going to work on our behalf simultaneously to developing what we want in the marketplace and what we need in the marketplace. But it's an ongoing thing, and in some spaces it's like Sisyphus pushing a rock up to the top for it to roll down. I'm trying to be the one that pushes the rock over the hump, let it roll down, and gain momentum. And that can't do it alone. The problem with Sisyphus, he never asked for help and say, yo, can you come help me get this rock over the hill before the sun sets? Perhaps he wasn't allowed, but we're not here to keep the rules as they are to stop us. So,
are you in contact with, I'm assuming you have some level of contact with your kind of peers in other chapters, for lack of a better word, of the NMSDC?
Oh, the affiliate council, yes. As a president, we have 23 regional councils, and we meet on a monthly basis. And we just had a big meeting big meeting out of state to discuss our overall structure and ways we can improve the system and the certification process and further collaboration. But I work very closely with my New York, New Jersey peer, because we share a state in terms of making sure we're sharing opportunities. But again, the advantage of our MBE is that it has a national and global reach. Personally, I'm the co-chair of the Global Development Advisory Council through the Philadelphia chapter of the World Trade Center. So I work with the state of Delaware, state of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, in terms of making sure we have global market penetration. I also work with the Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce. We've just entered into a reciprocal agreement with the Greater Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce. I'm actually speaking at the Asian Indian Chamber of Commerce tomorrow. So
you doing anything with the African American Chamber yet?
Yes, we are. We're actually putting together a joint event with them as well. Glad you said that, because I probably should have been first on my list, because that's the thing.
Wow.
Well, actually, the Asian Indian Chamber of New Jersey is tomorrow morning. So that's the first thing. But the African American Chamber and Drexel University, we're all doing a joint event soon. We're just in the process of planning that. And part of my job is to be a connector of organizations and getting and just a reminder, we have the entire state of Pennsylvania. So we do a lot of stuff out in Pittsburgh. I do a lot of stuff in Delaware. I do a lot of stuff in Southern New Jersey, Allentown, Erie. So we're all over the place. And I get a lot of assistance from my fellow presidents throughout the country when we're looking for services and commodities, and also connecting people to opportunities.
What challenges that you face as president of this particular region? What challenges would you say are unique to our region as opposed to challenges of other regions?
I think we're a very eclectic region. We're not homogenized in our politics. We're not homogenized in our diversity. We're not homogenized in our cultures, in our business norms, and we're not homogenized in the way we do business. I have to deal with a very eclectic group of people. I have different types of meetings from hour to hour with people from the central. Engaging a corporation in central Pennsylvania is entirely different than engaging one in southeastern Pennsylvania, or even in Pittsburgh, or even in Erie or southern Delaware. We have a variety of industries that very few regions can rival. I can go into the banking industry of Delaware, petrochemical, heavy agriculture, South Jersey, the energy industry. We have the shale production out in Western Pennsylvania, advanced manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, heavy highway, infrastructure development, eds and meds, which are strong in all the corners of this region. and life sciences. I mean, you run the gamut of just about everything. And then you have one of the more diverse and eclectic regions in the country. So we're dealing with a whole lot of stakeholders, a whole lot of constituencies. You know, I have to be very nimble in the Swiss Army knife in terms of engaging in industries and being able to have those conversations, because I can go from a construction conversation to a conversation about making swag for meetings in form of ink pens and mugs
right.
within 15 minutes of one of those. So my job is there's a literal level of code switching that I have to engage in terms of the type of business conversations that I have on a day-to-day basis. So that's the real challenge, just making sure that I'm on the right channel when I'm talking to someone. So we're speaking the same language. Fortunately, you know, I've been able to do a lot of different things, so it kind of works.
Well, tell us a little bit about that, because I haven't gotten to that. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you kind of got to this place where you're president and CEO.
The quote of famous movie villain, the details of my life are quite inconsequential, but interesting. So I guess how I got here is very interesting. It's been very eclectic. I started my career after I graduated. Now, just a little the educational background. I did my undergraduate at IUP out in Western PA, a couple of master's degrees at Penn, and I've had the good fortune of studying overseas at HEC in Paris, University of Oxford, and a couple other places, just in some brief stints in grad school while I was at Penn. So I started my career actually as a social worker because from the city. I'm originally from 50th and Walnut in Philadelphia, and I moved all over the city.
Another great West Philadelphia product.
Yep, West Philadelphia, born and not quite raised. I lived there until I was about 4 years old, and then I moved uptown, and I moved a lot of different places, and I wound up very, very close to the border, right across the border in Cheltenham Township, a place called Linwood Gardens. So by the time I got to high school. So I started off as a social worker because I wanted to come back and give back to the neighborhood and get some kids out of trouble that I saw were getting in trouble. And then I think I came to the realization at some point that I would probably be better served trying to become a philanthropist to try to help people. I think I'd be better if I could do something that had a broader impact and a broader scale. I worked as a drug counselor. I've also worked in developmental disabilities. I worked in economic and human development. I worked in public housing, and I think my first job in the economic development space was as a director of a pilot economic development program in South Jersey way back in 1995. When the pilot ran out, started my first company where I was doing grants and development, and then that ultimately evolved into government affairs and consulting. I worked in the Department of State in New Jersey. And throughout these meandering times, I've morphed into the economic side. I went to grad school, started studying the economics and the organizational things and the business development things. And it just morphed into my own consulting practice, which actually led me to my first stint at EMSDC as vice president. I was brought on as a consultant, and Val Cofield, my predecessor, asked me to stay on as vice president, which I did for a couple of years, and then I went back into private practice. And then Val called me again and said, we'd like for you to come in as president. So come in to serve as interim president, and just going through the process of being on board for time. I'm here to stay. But in between, I worked in workforce investment and development. I worked at Philadelphia Works. I worked for LISC, Local Initiative Supports Corporation, developed economic programs and sector-based partnerships. So I've had this pretty eclectic background that's allowed me to have the good fortune of getting into some spaces I may not have if I just taken one linear job path. So I've kind of been all over the place, and I've put a lot of tools.
You're the most interesting man in the world.
I would not classify myself as that, but if you want to call me that, play the Spanish guitar in the background.
Well, yeah, now that takes us very, very nicely into our next section, which is our rapid fire questions. And so I'm going to throw that question back to you, which is, what is one word that describes you?
Eclectic.
There you go. The best piece of advice you ever received?
Be smart enough to know how dumb you are.
A talent that you have that most people don't know that you have.
I can do a fake trumpet very well.
You don't want to say your golf game.
No, my golf game is
It's pretty
just
well
above
known.
me, just above mediocre. I guess most of my friends will say I play a lot of sports. I do a lot of different things. I'm a sports nut, and I've played or tried to play everything. So
biggest success.
My son.
Nice. What book that you've read has had the biggest impact on you?
Wow, that's a good one because I've read a ton of books. Wow, that's a tough one. That's not even a rap. I can't even rapid fire that one because I've read so many great books. I think
about a book that had such a tremendous impact on you that it still reverberates in some way, shape, or form.
See, I'm going to show my nerd side. It's a physics book called Consilience, and it's about the effort for the creation of unified theory between quantum mechanics and relativity. And it expresses, going back to that statement about be smart enough to know how dumb you are. You read that book and you realize how infinitesimally small and insignificant you are, and you just don't. You get over yourself, and you celebrate your wins, but you're not that impressed. And there's just infinitely more that I'll never know that I'm always chasing.
So, what's interesting was when you said that, first of all, I have not read that book. I won't profess
it wasn't a bestseller, trust me.
Heard that,
and it had small letters
book before. But it did remind me of a movie I just saw. Did you ever see Interstellar?
Oh, absolutely. I got to background this because one, outside of eclectic, I'm also very much a nerd. I'm not a complete nerd because I get to play sports and I have social skills, so I don't fit the stereotype. But I'm a complete nerd. So Interstellar is one of me and my son's favorite movies, and we watched it several times together. Because it does a lot with astrophysics, relativity, and quantum mechanics. It talks about black holes and things of that nature.
Yes.
What happens when you enter the event horizon and alternate universe, parallel universes and stuff like that. So it's actually a very well executed movie. It's one of those sci-fi movies where okay, they really did the science on this. They paid attention.
Yeah, they did. I actually read about it afterwards, and they did. I think they the director, whose name escapes me, and I love him so much, but his name escapes me right now. Did a lot of research to make the science as consistent with real science as possible, right?
Yeah, and the guy, he's the same guy that made the movie. He's made a lot of science movies.
Well, he made the Batman trilogy that I love so much with Christian Bale.
He also made the movie with where Leonardo DiCaprio and they're stopping time and stuff.
Top three favorite movie of mine.
And then the one with Denzel's son, where he's traveling back in time. He made that movie. Good. It was the same ethos, and actually the science behind it is really theoretically sound. So it's not like he's making stuff up. So and it's a shame that we don't know his name because we should be giving the man his flowers. Nolan. Chris Nolan. There you go. Chris Nolan. Give that man his flowers because the Batman trilogy.
I love him.
I love him. Other movies he's made, he makes great. I'm excited about his new movie. He's doing a movie about Oppenheimer.
Oh, okay.
Who helped create the atomic bomb? So that's coming out this summer. And I'll probably go check that out because again, I'm a nerd. I'm into these.
But the reason why I raised that is because when you see a movie like that, it does make you. Not that I needed any reminding, but it does make you realize how infinitesimally small our existence is. Right.
And the moment that we're operating in is like that in the universe.
Like that.
And but it's all relative to our existence. This 80 to 1,000 years that I may live, I don't know. I just want to make an impact in a big footprint. And I do have to do a shameless plug about my nerddom because I said my greatest achievement is my son. And he's sitting up at MIT about to be a rocket scientist. So I'm not even the smartest guy in my living room most days.
Well, That's the way you want it.
But that's part of the humbling experience,
right,
of being smart enough to know how dumb you are when you look at your 21-year-old son and he's running laps around you intellectually.
You know what? But he comes from a particular legacy, so you should be proud of that.
I'll pat myself on the back for it.
You should be proud of that.
Yeah, but he's he's my best advertising. Let's put it that way. I use him as my billboard.
Final question. Favorite musical artist of all time?
Wow, that's an easy one for me. There's a pantheon, but on top of that pantheon is a Tribe Called Quest. Right down there is Sade.
Wait a minute. A Tribe
John
Called Quest.
Coltrane.
Wait. So a Tribe Called Quest is your favorite musical artist of all time?
Absolutely, unequivocally.
I love that.
Now, there are other influences. Like I said, I have Sade here. I have John Coltrane over here. And, it's there's an amalgamation of my musical tastes are very eclectic. I won't say which one I don't like because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I have a very eclectical musical taste. I grew up having my mother play Millie Jackson and Bill Withers music as she cleaned up the house when I was a kid. So I learned how to cuss and
I was going to say that was jarring in and of itself.
Oh, well, I learned all the language
diversity
enhancers.
Within diversity.
I was always, she was cleaning, you could smell the pine sol, and the language enhancers were going on with Millie Jackson. Then, Bill Withers would come on and, settle things down a little bit. So, the yin and yang was always there. My mother's still around, thank goodness, 80 years old, cantankerous.
God bless her.
Very well retired and just as spunky as ever. So, hi, Mom, when you watch this. Hi, Wheezy. And she'll be watching this and critiquing me. So yeah, a Tribe Called Quest is, and people who know me know that, like a Tribe Called Quest is my music. If I was stuck on a desert island or, they're doing my Viking funeral, it would be to electronic relaxation.
All right. So that was my next question. What was your favorite song? And so I approve wholeheartedly.
So actually the deeper question is what's my favorite album? Because it's always a different answer every time someone asks.
What is it today?
It's a toss up between Midnight Marauders and Low End Theory. Today I'm probably in the Midnight Marauders mood.
I think I gotta go with Midnight Marauders.
Yeah, I'm generally in the Midnight Marauders mood, but sometimes I gotta turn on Low End Theory because it's the best intro in the history of hip hop. Back in the days.
Yeah, I think Midnight Marauders, you have more hits on that album.
Yeah, see, I just, for them, it wasn't even about the albums being hit. It was just a composition of music.
Yeah, no, I got it. No, believe me.
Yeah, and actually, I always tell people eventually, I just look at them as a double album that came out a couple years apart. Actually, I think we're doing the 30th anniversary of one of those albums. And
man, first of all, well, I don't want to date the program, but it just makes me, when you say 30th anniversary, and then one of the pioneers for that subsection of hip hop passed away yesterday.
Dave Truboy.
Right.
He was one of the native tongues that was responsible for that, and probably created an album that was on level with Midnight Marauders and Low End Theory, which is Stakes is High.
Yeah.
So I was playing a lot of Stakes is High yesterday, and then he has another song called Crying, which is kind of a self-confession, cathartic song that is aligned with his passing. Just kind of really expressing himself in a way that very few of us express ourselves in terms of mental health and self-exposure.
Right. So, Brian Oglesby, thank you so much for being on our show, man. We greatly appreciate it. There was not enough time. We were just getting the conversation started. Now that we start talking about,
I'll be back for part 2 if you want me to.
Oh yeah, we got to do it again.
I'm always down with the sequel, man. Anything I can do to help out and help inform. Just want to shameless plug.
Go ahead.
EMSDC has our annual Roar Conference at the Sofitel Hotel in Philadelphia on April 14th. On July 17th, we'll have our annual charity and scholarship golf tournament. Always a fun time. Come out, I'll drive me. July 17th at Whitehaven Country Club. And Choice Awards in December. And emsdc.org is our email address. And my email address is brian@emsdc.org. Full access. If you have any more questions, reach out to us.
Brian Oglesby, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We appreciate you, my man. Really do.
Thank you, Michael.
Looking forward to our audience, thank you, sir. And to our audience, thank you for being a part of our show. We look forward to continuing the discussion and keeping it going. Till the next time, be well.